Now, in just a moment, we'll be revealing that brilliant new portrait of Sir David Attenborough right here in the studio. It's been commissioned by the Royal Society to celebrate his incredible career.
But first, let's find out more about the artist behind it and why this was such a passion project for Jonathan Yeo.
My job is really most fun when I get interesting people to paint. And I've been fortunate enough to paint some very interesting people over the years. Some of them well known. I've painted politicians, musicians and artists and lots of actors. I've been painting members of the royal family, most obviously the King recently, which was particularly exciting, and David Attenborough, who I think some people would regard as royalty in another way himself. I did a drawing of Sir David for the Royal Collection in about 2011. So I spent a little bit of time with him already. I was convinced he found me really boring because he was, his mind races around and he knows more than you about everything. But I was surprised and delighted when, 10 years later I get a call saying, do you want to do this portrait for the Royal Society, which is a very prestigious thing in itself. And he specifically asked for me to do it. So, how could you refuse that? When Life on Earth came out, I was in primary school and it was a huge subject of conversation and it had a huge impact. The enthusiasm and wonder you sensed in him was so infectious. I'm sure he's influenced hundreds of millions of people to become far more interested and knowledgeable about what's going on in the natural world. My earliest memories of painting, I did a drawing of my mum in felt tip pen when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And I remember the face was quite easy, but I got a tangle over the hands, which I hadn't tried to do before, and I hated the picture and I was very upset when she put it up on the wall because I felt I'd done it wrong. But looking back on it, I think it was an okay early effort. Well, I didn't go to art school. I did study film for a while, but I got ill. I had Hodgkin's disease, which is a type of cancer, when I was about 22, and that derailed things for a year or so while I was being treated. But at a time in life when you're trying to make a decision what you want to do long term, and especially if you want to do something creative and everyone's trying to advise you against it, I think it gave me a sort of determination and, some might say pig-headedness to pursue this thing. And I think if it hadn't happened then, who knows, but I might not have ended up doing what I'm doing now. A portrait should tell you a bit more than a photograph. You need to really connect with the subject if it's going to be a good one. People need to feel they can open up. And I think the sense that I'd been through a kind of trauma at that stage in life encouraged people, to treat it almost like therapy, like a confessional. And then I learned so much about people, which would inform the pictures. You get a chance to meet these extraordinary people. You can drop into their world in a way that you wouldn't in any other way. I've had many pinch me moments over the years when you find yourself in a room with one of these people, whether it's Malala Yousafzai or Prince Philip. I remember because that was about 20 years ago and was the first royal portrait I'd done, and he was a little bit scary as well. He certainly kept me on my toes. That never wears off. However many you do, there's still something exciting about the next person who walks in the door. And I think that's what maintains your interest in it after 30 years or whatever it's been. The Sir David sittings were fabulous. He's just full of curiosity and energy and life and full of stories. I wanted him to be looking out directly at the viewer and engaging, because that's who he is. And he also tends to do this thing where when he's interested in something, he'll clasp his hands together and rock forward and come alive. And I think that's something which I, in the end, felt would be such a nice way to portray him. He's someone who's obviously more aware of what he looks like than most of us, because he's seen himself on screen over many decades. But how I've done it is how he sees himself, I don't know, we'll see. I hope he likes it.
Well, Jonathan is here with us now. Jonathan, thank you so much for bringing the portrait in for us to see. Our viewers will be desperate to see it. So, here it is. Oh, wow. It's incredible, and it actually feels special to be standing next to it, doesn't it?
What an honour.
You showed Sir David Attenborough a couple of hours ago, this afternoon, and this was his reaction.
Expertly done. Bravo. thank the Society so much for this true honour, and Jonathan for making such a spectacular picture for me. I'd even recognise myself. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, Jonathan, what a moment. What's going through your mind when that happens?
Lots of things. In a funny way, I mean, usually I don't, it sounds funny to say, but usually I don't worry too much about what people's immediate reaction to a painting is, because we don't tend to know what we look like. You know, we tend to see our reflection in the bathroom mirrors, or reversed, and, you know, or selfies where we're very conscious of, you know, the picture being taken and pouting in bed and posing. And actually the way other people see us is, you know, down to our kind of, you know, our mannerisms and micro expressions and the way we move when we're interested or reacting to things. But actually, David is pretty more than most people aware of how he looks, because he's seen himself on screen, or, you know, over 50 years. And so I was a bit more worried about that. But I sensed, yeah, also, I mean, people always say nice things, whether they actually like it or not. But I think he seemed to recognise himself in it.
It is a really emotional portrait. There's something very moving about it. But I want to ask you how you capture the eyes, because you've managed to get his sparkle in there. Yes,
well, the eyes are pretty crucial. And, you know, like I was saying, it's the animation you get. Basically, that's the luxury you've got with doing a painting rather than make just a photograph, is that you can get sort of more than, you know, lots of different expressions in. If you mix them up in the right way, it can actually make it feel like it's almost alive. And the eyes tend to be the expression, you know, the genuine expression. You know, we can fake it with our mouths. We can do it, you know, and we all know the difference, obviously, a fake smile, and with a lot more sort of subtle ones where there's a mismatch between the sort of eyes expression and the mouth. But when they're in sync, it feels right. And the eyes are the genuine one. That's why that's the one that's more important to get right.
Yeah. So you obviously had many sit-ins with him. Was it just amazing to spend all that time? It's quite intimate, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I mean, I'm very lucky. I get some, you know, pretty incredible people to paint, but still occasionally you get, you know, it suddenly was it was a big deal for me, because I've known him all my life. You know, I grew up watching Life on Earth when I was a kid, and, you know, so he's always been a figure in my life. And I think, you know, it's not that you're intimidated, but, you know, it feels very special. And he was lovely, you know. He was really enthusiastic about it, and he wanted me to do this thing and, you know, give his time to it, even though he doesn't really have to do these things anymore. And he was, you know, and we started off. I went to his house a couple of times and looked around and thought about ways of posing it and, you know, what might be in the picture. And then he came to the studio probably 5 or 6 times, and we had these amazing chats. I mean, he's just knowledgeable about everything. I mean, obviously, you know, he knows a lot about science and natural world, but he knows more. You know, he knows more than you about, like, technology and art. He knew more than me about you know, he'd read the books, the names of the books on the shelves, and tell me about all the artists, because he used to go to all the exhibitions that were on in London. And he just remembers everything as well. So you've got these endless stories, and he's a great performer. And so the problem is, you know, often the anecdotes are so amazing, you get distracted and find the painting starts to go wrong. So that's the only problem with that.
How wonderful to get that insight. Thank you, Jonathan.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much for bringing the portrait in. And it will be on display in London at the Royal Society's week-long Summer Science Exhibition, taking place from the 2nd to the 7th of July.
Incredible. Still to come. George, joining us now is architect and presenter George Clarke.
Hello.
Welcome, George.
George.
Thanks for having me on.
Back with the series we all love, Amazing Spaces. Yep. And in this week's episode, there's a railway carriage.
There is. A fantastic couple took on a Great Western Railway carriage and they've turned it into a, let's call it a doggy-friendly hotel. So if you want to stay with dogs, that is the place to stay.
Heaven.
Gosh, it's a great use of, you know, recycling to make something that's needed.
I mean, to be honest, all the projects that we have, people are upcycling and recycling old buildings and railway carriages and lifeboats and aeroplane cockpits, you name it. I mean, you're only limited by your imagination, I think, on Amazing Spaces, to be honest with you.
And on this series, you go back and visit a guy called Adam.
Yeah, lovely
He's got
Adam.
these amazing shipping containers. Now, you have visited Adam in the past.
First series.
Yeah, with Amazing
2012.
Bus. Now, what happened?
So he to kind of convert this double-decker bus into a holiday let. It was providing a lot of income for him, really important build, so it wasn't just a whimsical build. And then some people stayed, and I think they left a barbecue that was a little bit too hot next to the decking, so the whole thing just caught on fire and burnt, and absolutely devastating for him because he put his heart and soul into it. And then all of these years later, 12 years later, he took on another build, and I said, we've got to film it. Because he actually became a friend of mine after the first series.
Did he?
Oh, yeah, we became really, really good mates and kept in touch. And so I said, we've got to film the new project. And so he spent just over a year and a half, nearly 2 years, blood, sweat and tears, and created a fantastic new project that's on the series. Well, it was on last week, actually.
Yeah, and it is amazing. If people didn't see it, let's just have a look.
Gorgeous build.
I'm so pleased with how it's turned out. Really, really pleased.
It looks fantastic. Yeah. I love the way that you've exposed the shipping containers on the ground floor, clad them on the first floor.
I wanted this to be exposed, this bottom bit, because I wanted it to look like a container. Otherwise, you wouldn't know, would you? It could just be like a box.
I want to rent it. Can I stay?
Absolutely.
Do I get, like, mate's discount after 10 years? No. Yeah, I knew that was coming.
Well, we'll see. Maybe.
You'll put the price up for me.
Now, George, we love these type of makeover shows. I am not surprised you're into Series 12.
I know.
Because, yes, it's about seeing the transformation, but it's about the human experience, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the people.
Yeah.
You know, I've done a number of shipping containers, a number of buses, a number of boats and barges, tree houses, you name it. But every story's different because all the people involved are different and they're doing it for different reasons and they've got different styles and different tastes. For me, it's a really accessible series. I mean, some people are doing the most unbelievable things on very, very low budgets, and they do put everything into it. So it's quite an emotional journey at the same time.
Yeah, and they're all different, as you say.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how many buses, each bus is different.
Even when two come at once.
Yeah. We revealed a portrait of Sir David Attenborough earlier.
And how good is it, by the way? I mean, it is absolutely stunning. I was having a chat with Jonathan beforehand. I mean, that boy is super, super talented. I love his work.
Unbelievable.
And the King Charles painting was good. I would even say the David Attenborough one's even better. I shouldn't really say that. I'm going to get in trouble now from the King. I'm going to get in massive trouble from King Charles.
No one's going to hear you saying
Well, I'm a massive Attenborough fan, so I'm slightly biased.
But you designed something for him when you were at uni, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, not personally for him. I didn't design anything for him, but we were set. It was a kind of conceptual project in first-year architecture, right? And there was these brick kilns, these existing brick kilns from the 19th century.
Yeah,
right.
And we had to go and measure them and survey them and understand the history of the building and then design a house inside the brick kiln for your superhero.
Look, there's you. There's you in 1992.
Me in 92. Look at those dodgy trousers and that dodgy top.
Those are the kilns
so
next to you.
So they're the kilns, and then just over my shoulder, you can't really see it that well, actually, just on my shoulder. Imagine we've pulled the kiln open. Yeah. And I designed a house for David Attenborough inside, because he was my hero. Genuine. I mean, he still is. I think he's absolutely brilliant. As Jonathan said, he's been part of our lives, all of our life. He's been on TV since TV practically began.
Yeah, amazing.
And so I put this tree-like structure, this kind of architect-designed tree, inside to support the old structure of the kiln, and I put stained glass floors in there and a hammock for him to sleep in and everything.
Well, it sounds amazing, but we're out of time. George Clarke's Amazing Spaces continues on Thursday night, 9 o'clock on Channel 4. That's all we've got time for. Thank you to our guests.
We will be back on BBC Two tomorrow at 7:05 with David Baddiel and Gloria Hunniford. Join us then.